Hello, my beautiful friends. My name is Kim, and I hope you are having a fabulous day today. If you are interested in true crime like I am, I hope you would consider hitting that subscribe button. But either way, thanks for being here. You guys have been so sweet with your comments, sending me thoughts and prayers for my mom. At the end of the case, I'd like to tell you the story of what's going on with my mom's journey with COVID. If you're interested in that, then just stay to the end. I have to say, I am so honored to share the story of Banaz. This case is as horrific as it is interesting. I have to give credit to the documentary that I got this information from, which I will have linked below. It won a Peabody Award and is so well done. This is the first case that I have done that involves an honor killing. By definition, honor killing is, in certain cultures, the killing of a relative, typically a woman who is perceived to have brought dishonor on the family. And you may be thinking, did this case happen in 1910? Like, what is this? Did it happen when women's rights were non-existent? Women voting was just not a thing? This happened in 2006. I'm Bringing Sexy Back was topping the charts by Justin Timberlake. So if that puts it into perspective for you of the time period, as I understand it, and to simplify what an honor killing is when a relative brings shame to their family and a family member or members in this case feel they have the right to take the life of that other family member. It makes absolutely no sense why, like this case, adultery or divorce is put behind murder. Murder's okay, but don't you cheat. It's so backwards. Let's talk about the case of Banaz. Banaz Mahmod was born December 16th, 1985. She was described as being a caring, soft, kind person, and she didn't like confrontation. She didn't like when people raised their voice and was said to want just a happy life, a family, children. Banaz's family are strictly traditional Kurdish family. They're from Iraqi Kurdistan. Banaz lived with her father, Mumad, same first name, last name, and her mom. I'm going to slaughter some names. I am so sorry. I just don't know them. I tried to look them up, but of course I have memory of a goldfish. So I'll put the name on the screen just in case I say it wrong, so you'll know what I'm trying to say anyways. Banaz had one brother and four sisters. The family sought asylum in the United Kingdom in 1995 when Banaz was 10 years old. They fled Iraq to the UK. The father was one of four brothers that lived in South London area. Although he was the eldest, he was not the head of the family. That role was taken on by the younger brother, and the younger brother's name was Ari. Ari was a wealthy man, so this is why he was able to take the role, the leader role in the family. Banaz's eldest sister had an arranged marriage, as did her younger sister, Payman, also known as Paisy, who was married when she was only 16 years old to a man who was 15 years her senior. Bakal was 2 years older than Banaz, fled the family home in 2002, and spent time in foster care. The eldest four daughters, including Banaz, were subject to female genital mutilation. It was described as a sharp blade, cotton balls, and rubbing alcohol as their tools. They were dragged one by one to the bedroom by their father, and the girls were circumcised. The older sister played heavily in this trial and the documentary, and her name was Bakal. She stated she tried to fight them off, but that did not stop them. She said it was done so the woman didn't feel sexual in that way. She reported that she had been subjected to physical abuse and threats because she mixed with people her family did not approve of and experimented with the Western culture of clothing and hairstyles. She would say that they could only have their fingernails cut short. They couldn't have any perfume. Don't even think about plucking your eyebrows. And that was just to name a few. The men felt from moving from their culture, a very strict culture, to the UK where it's more of a Western culture, that with the freedom that women had, the more freedom, should I say, the women had, the men felt as they were losing power, and the women admired the fact that they had more freedom. So the men, in efforts to regain power, they would forbid things from happening. Bakel, the older sister, reported that an attempt was made to kill her, so that is why she left the home and family. She was hit over the head with a dumbbell by her brother and was able to fight and get him away. And he admitted that their father told him and paid him to do this to her, to get rid of the shame that she was bringing on the family. When this attempt was unsuccessful, then her father threatened and tried to manipulate her by telling her he was going to kill her mother, her sisters, and himself if she did not return to the family home. Instead of returning to the home, she lived in hiding, constantly moving and never leaving the house without wearing a full veil. The father was seen as a failure because he could not control his daughters, specifically Bakel, who was very defiant and wanted to be free of this family. It was viewed as him being weak within the Kurdish community, and he was ostracized as a result. It is all how you are perceived in the community. The community will not work with you if you become ostracized. So this goes beyond just the family walls. At age 17, Banaz was forced into an arranged marriage with a man by the name of Ali. Ali was from the family's hometown. By her account, she had only met him once before the marriage. He was 10 years her elder. He was an illiterate man. He didn't know how to read or write. He was described as old-fashioned. His mindset was something that she would say was 50 years ago, of how a marriage and a household should be ran. She came into contact with police throughout her marriage, reporting that she had been raped and beaten several times. If he wanted sex, he would make her. She had no right to say no. Ever. Her family were aware of the beatings and the forced intercourse, but they didn't care. They told her that leaving her husband would bring shame on them, and that was not an option. Here's an interview with the police and Banaz in one of her statements.
So describe your relationship then from the very early stages through to when things started to go wrong for you.
He was just like he was thinking like in 50 years back, like he was a strict husband. Whenever he wanted to have sex, it was just his way, always his way. Like whenever I said no, or he wouldn't take no for an answer, and he would just start raping me and doing what he liked to do. I tried to stop him, but he would slap me or hit me on the back or just pull me by the hair. I just started to like cover my body, like hold on like that. That's it. That's when he said to me he would kill me if I said anything to anyone. I would get out of the bedroom, go to the bathroom. I cried a lot, but when I came out, he just acted like nothing has happened. And I was just 17 there. And some of the times it was in the living room that he raped me, or in the bedroom. I didn't know if this was normal in our culture or in here, I was only 17, so I just let him do what he liked. Whenever he raped me, it was like I was his shoe and he would wear it just whenever he felt like it. Ali had told me to, if anyone had seen me, just tell them that you fell in the bathroom. He made me believe that my family had loved him more than they loved me, and if I ever told anyone that he would kill me or that I've got no family around me and they're far away from me, so he could do anything with me as he liked. I didn't try to defend myself or anything. I just cried and that was it.
With the abuse continuing, she finally had enough, and she gained enough courage and left him after 2 years of marriage. She returned to the family home in July of 2005. She started a relationship with someone that her family didn't choose for her. His name was Ramat Salamani. The family did not see Ramat as a good fit and did not support the relationship. They wanted her to return to the abusive husband. They thought he was a great guy. He was described as a perfect husband, a perfect match for their daughter, even after knowing everything that he was putting her through. The family was very aware of Ali's abuse towards Banaz. They even confronted him about it. He did not disagree with the allegations. He said she was disrespectful, so he beat her. She would refuse to have sex with him, so he would force himself on her. It wasn't his fault, it was Banaz. And the family was okay with this explanation. They felt Banaz should try harder. If only you could see the burning anger inside of me. She is now back at the family's home and is carrying on this secret relationship. Well, it's not so secret, but this relationship. Banaz notices that she's being followed. This is how she explains this.
I left him several times. I went back to my parents, but because for a Muslim female like me, it's very hard to get a divorce, and so I had to go back to him several times. I was brainwashed into it would be how I would be putting shame onto the family if I got divorced or separated from him. We'd have meetings with my parents, all of the family sit down, because I had no other choice but to go back to him. A couple of months after, I made up on my mind that I wanted divorce. So I made his dinner. I set at the table and put his dinner. I had a coffee in my hands and I was just watching the TV. He said to me, look at yourself in the mirror, like how you've become so skinny and ugly. And I was nothing but a whore. So straight away with his mobile, I called my mom and I said that I wanted divorce no matter what by this afternoon. I was really angry, shouting down the phone. I packed some of my personal things, just like brushes and things, and I left. I think that was the last argument that we had. I recognized my face, and he hasn't come to my house ever, but I've seen him on occasions on weddings and that. And even now when I go out, one guy, as soon as I came out of the house, he was following me with a car. I heard someone calling my name in my language. So I turned around and he told me that he should give me a lift and I should go into his car. And I said no and just put my head down and keep walking. So that day he was just following me. People following me. Or still now they follow me. And that was the main reason that I came to the police station.
Okay.
That in the future or at any time, if anything happens to me, it's them.
If ever you're worried or afraid for your own safety, you must contact us straight away.
Yeah.
All right, I don't want you worrying, and we can get somebody out. Even if it turns out it's been nothing, at least, for your own peace of mind.
Now that I'm giving this statement, what can you do for me?
You've given us lines of inquiry that we will need to follow up.
Okay.
Okay. But we will let you know of what's going on as it's happening, really, just so that you're kept informed and up to date as to what's going on. Okay.
After this report to the police, there was no follow-up with Banaz's husband or father, and it took them 3 months to write up her statement.
Now that I'm giving this statement, what can you do for me?
She went to the police about her family and her husband. Meanwhile, Banaz's uncle, Ari, and father disapproved of her leaving Ali and had been informed by the community that Banaz and Rama had remained in a relationship despite their claims that the relationship had ended. They were spotted at a train station together, kissing. So on December 2nd, 2005, a meeting was held at the home of the uncle, Ari, that it was agreed that both Banaz and her boyfriend should be killed for bringing shame onto the family and the community. Banaz would overhear a phone call about what their plans were. So fearing for her life, Banaz went to the police and reported that her uncle had threatened to kill both her and her boyfriend, apparently learning of the plot after overhearing a phone call between her uncle and her mother on that day. 10 days later, on October 12th, she delivered a letter to the Wilmington police station naming those she claimed were ready to kill. On New Year's Eve, the police were called to a cafe in Wilmington where Banaz had arrived in a distressed state, saying that her father had tried to kill her. What she stated happened was that she was tricked to go to her grandmother's house. So she arrives and her father asks her to bring in a suitcase. She does. She doesn't think anything of it. He hands her a glass of brandy, which she found was odd because she wasn't a big drinker. Banaz didn't really drink and he doesn't offer her booze. And so she thought it was odd, but he says, drink this, drink it slowly, it's strong, and so she did. It is believed that he wanted to lower her inhibitions. He said, sit on the couch and watch some TV and don't turn around. She was at this point scared. She said that at one point she actually did turn around, and what she saw was her father wearing gloves and tennis shoes, and she knew she was in danger. He grabbed her by her neck. She managed to escape from the home. She ran out of the house into the neighbor's yard in-house, and she was so scared that she ended up breaking their window just to get their attention. She had injuries to her hands and wrist from breaking this window. She didn't have any shoes on. She's running around barefoot. She wasn't successful at the neighbor's house, so she just keeps running the streets until she gets to this cafe, and she just collapses on the floor before the police could get there. While witnesses describe Banaz as distraught and terrified by the cafe and hospital staff, the policewoman who interviewed her, Angela Cornez, did not believe her. She referred to her as manipulative and melodramatic. And she wanted to charge Banaz for breaking the window, like property damage. I have no words. Whilst in the hospital, Banaz gave an account of events to her boyfriend, which he recorded on his phone, and he later handed this over to the police. Here is that recording. Manipulative and melodramatic. That same officer went to her home where she was to take her statement as well to speak to the family, specifically her father, about Banaz's complaint. This was all done with the family in the house. So imagine you are being assaulted by somebody and they pull you in the same room and tell you to give an account of what happened. You gotta imagine that she is not openly talking. She's scared to death. And he's right there and he's gonna interrupt her and say, that's not what happened. And she's not gonna fully get her statement out. Apparently, this is just against police policy of how they're supposed to conduct an interview. But this police officer decided that day that that's what she was going to do. This only put Banaz in even more danger. But to back up a little bit, Banaz was released from the hospital and she went to go live with her boyfriend for a while. But when was asked by the family to meet her, they wanted to meet in public. They said, meet me at McDonald's to discuss her coming home. She was convinced that her mother and her other family members would not hurt her and they would potentially protect her. So she agreed to return home to the family. Because of this reassurance from the family, telling her everything's going to be okay, I'm not going to let anything happen to you, Banaz returns to the family home. On January 22nd, an attempt was made to kidnap Banaz's boyfriend. 3 of the men involved were among those whom Banaz had already named to the police. Both her and her boyfriend separately reported the incident, and Banaz was scheduled to go to the police department on January 24th, but Banaz never arrived to report this incident. January 25th, 2006, Banaz's boyfriend reported Banaz as missing. The police started their investigation. They questioned the family, which said that she had just ran away and wasn't missing. The community in which they lived would not help with the investigation. They wouldn't cooperate with the officers. They wouldn't give any details about Banaz. And you have to imagine that they're in fear of their own safety or being ostracized themselves. False statements were given to the police that they had seen Banaz, on the street, or I seen her here and she's alive and well. So the officers, of course, needed to investigate this. So officers were bogged down with false allegations, and so they're just investigating a dead end. The officer estimated that there was at least 50 people who knew about what happened to Banaz and didn't come forward or had also contributed to the false statements and aided in some way. The older sister that had escaped the family, Bakel, that was the first person to say it was the family, specifically the men, that killed her. She didn't know the details, but she knew if Banaz was missing, most likely it was them. Remember, Banaz had already given names to the police of the family members that if anything happens to me, it would be those names, those people that would be responsible. Bakel at this point was in hiding, but the family was able to reach her and they told her to keep her mouth shut or she would be next. Bakel was so brave and she did not keep quiet. The officers actually had to move her from house to house to try to keep her safe. What a scary time for Bakel, but she didn't crack. I admire her for how brave she is. The officers had a list of names in which Banaz had given them. They made some arrests, but couldn't hold them for too long because they didn't have solid evidence, nor did they have the body of Banaz. The family had no interest in helping the investigators, nor wanted any updates in the status of the case. They were clearing a lake by the family's home, and they literally didn't even come outside to check to see how they were doing, how it's coming along. Have you found her? Nothing. Absolutely no interest whatsoever, which isn't surprising knowing what we know now, but then it was just so obvious, and how heartbreaking. Missing, and nobody in the family appeared to care. Finally, the police got a break. They were able to track down the phones of 2 of the family members that were involved, as well as received a tip about a freezer of where Banaz was buried under. They had pinged their phones of the men, and so they were able to figure out where they had been. And so they put a helicopter to hover over, and one of the officers just randomly remembered seeing a freezer. Like, what are the odds? When they reviewed the footage, this is when they spotted that freezer in the backyard of a home that the suspects had pinged at. The officers then got a search warrant, and Banaz's body was found buried 6 feet underground. She was positioned in a fetal position inside of a suitcase. At only 20 years old. Water pipes had been broken when they were digging up the spot of where she was found. And so Banaz's body was not in good shape from all of the water in these water pipes being broken. What was later admitted to happening is on the morning of January 24th, 2006, Banaz's parents left the family home to take their youngest daughter to school and to go shopping, leaving Banaz asleep on the living room floor. Banaz didn't have her own bedroom. She slept just on the floor of the living room. The father then let the men know that Banaz is home. The coast is clear. So 3 family members, Muhammad Hama, Muhammad Ali, and Omar Hussein, arrived at the home shortly thereafter. According to some recordings, they were covert recordings that the police had put on the men. Hama made, while he was in custody, the trio subjected Banaz to more than 2 hours of rape and torture before she was strangled. These were her family members. This goes beyond an honor killing. These are just sick, troubled men. They did this, and then they put her in the suitcase. They transported her to a house in Hamsworth, West Midlands, and buried her in the backyard garden. Conversations of the 3 men were secretly recorded by the police, and the men are on tape proud of their crimes to Banaz. Heard slapping each other on the back, laughing, disgusting humans. The men, when they were there doing this to Banaz, her sister was upstairs. They didn't know that she was up there. She knew what was going on. She knew that Banaz was being attacked. But you better believe it, she kept her mouth shut because she did not want to be next. The men were actually upset with the father because they believed that Banaz was there by herself, home alone. There are more details of the account of what happened to Banaz, but I'm just going to keep it to that. I think that is awful enough and heartbreaking. In the meantime, the family removed any trace of Banaz's existence. All pictures were removed from the home. If you did not know before that Banaz was once a part of that family, you would never know it. There were no clues left behind. So, to no surprise, when she was laid to rest, her family left her grave unmarked. No tombstone, no headstone, know nothing to even know that she's there. On June 26, 2007, a memorial service was held for Banaz. And then following that, they did a memorial, a granite memorial. And what they did is they bought her this granite headstone, which was placed at her gravesite. Her family did not attend either service. The purchase of the gravestone was arranged by the Kurdish Women's Rights Organization. Police officers and the lead prosecutor in the case were among the people that contributed to this headstone. Both Muhammad Ali and Omar Hussein fled to Iraqi Kurdistan after the murder. In October 2007, Scotland Yard were notified that Ali was in custody, where he had killed a teenage boy in a hit-and-run incident. They were like, come and get him. He was extradited in June 2009 in what was the first ever extradition from Iraq to the United Kingdom, a move described as legal history. And that has to tell you they didn't want him. He was a bad man. Hussein had been hiding out in a remote area of Iraq, shielded by his brothers. During a dispute with one of his brothers in December 2009, he was shot in the leg and so he went to the hospital to get treatment for his leg. He was arrested at the hospital when he was getting treated. Hussein insisted that he was not in the United Kingdom at the time of Banaz's death, but they were able to tie UK welfare benefit records and some photographic evidence from a previous arrest proved that he was actually there. He's like, this is a mistaken identity. And they were like, no. So he was extradited in March 2010. Here is a list of who was convicted, who they were to her, who was convicted, and their sentence. Banaz's father got life in prison with a minimum term of 20 years. Ari, her uncle, he got life in prison with a minimum of 23 years. Muhammad Hama, he got a life sentence with a minimum of 17 years. I'm not sure how to say this name. Conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, and they received time served, which I believe was like 35 months. Muhammad Ali, the victim's cousin, was charged with murder, conspiracy to kidnap, threats to kill, perverting the course of justice, and he got life in prison with a minimum of 22 years. Omar Hussein, Banaz's cousin, got murder, conspiracy to kidnap, threats to kill, perverting the course of justice, got a life sentence with a minimum term of 21 years. Dana Ahmed, this was Banaz's cousin as well, perverting the course of justice, perverting the victim's lawful and decent burial, and they got 8 years in prison. So following Banaz's murder, Banaz's boyfriend, Ramat, went into witness protection. Despite his family members in Iran being threatened, he testified in both trials. The risk he had taken by doing so were recognized by both the judge and the police officers, referring to him as one of the real heroes in this case. The detective would say, without him, we wouldn't have known that Banaz was even missing. He risked his life to go against his whole community, and doing so, he gave up everything and everyone he knew. He struggled to adjust to his new life and this isolated nature of witness protection, and seemingly never recovered from Banaz's murder. Therefore, he killed himself in 2016, which is just awful. It's just horrible. He was stripped away from everything he knew. I've heard about honor killings, but didn't really understand what they were. This case really opened up my eyes to what they are and apparently happen way too much within these communities. I'm sure there are some people out there that share my anger in what happened to Banaz, and I look forward to reading your thoughts in the comments. So, on a more personal note, thanks to everyone who sent me their thoughts and prayers for my mom. If you're not interested to hearing about this, please feel free to click off, no problem. But my mom was having a hard time breathing, so she attempts to call for an ambulance to come and get her. Because she had such a lack of oxygen, she couldn't remember how to dial 911. We can laugh about it now, but how scary for her at the time. She gets to the hospital and they do a COVID test on her, and of course she tests positive. She's then admitted to the ICU and told her that she needs to be put on a ventilator, but most likely she will not be leaving the hospital, and gave her basically 2 days to live. That's what they told my sister. We're going to give it a couple days. Her lungs were filled with fluid. My mom said if it's that bad that she didn't want to put us through, her family, through being put on a ventilator and dragging out the inevitable. Nobody in the family was happy about this decision. My brother texts me, do something, and it's like, but that's what she wanted. So my mom is as stubborn as I am. There was no talking her out of it. So she still refused the ventilator. So the doctors still proceeded with the medications. They gave her some COVID meds and some steroids. The doctors, like I said, told my sister she probably has a couple days. We'll see how it goes, but it's really bad. So a couple days later, she's improving. Mind you, she did not go on the ventilator as they suggested. Each day, she is getting stronger and stronger. As of right now, she kicked COVID's butt. I have to wonder if she had said yes to the ventilator, if things would have been different. It's just really hard to say. You don't know what you don't know. She's not completely out of the woods yet. It is very common, apparently, that patients will have a relapse, but as of right now, she's home. She's doing okay. I'm gonna stick around for another couple weeks and help out with just, laundry and stuff she needs help with. She has nurses that are coming in to see her, so yeah, she's home. I'm super surprised. I live in California, and I had to jump on a flight, and they're like a couple of days, and I'm like, what the heck? And I know there's so many stories out there of cases that have gone another way than what has happened to my mom, and my thoughts and prayers go out to you. I mean, every case is different. I can't say everything, but in our situation, she did get better. But anyway, so I'm gonna have a new background for the next couple of videos. This is what I came up with. I'm not sure if it's the best. I can work on lighting a little bit and sound if I need to. Just let me know what you guys think. If you guys made it to the end, you guys are rock stars, and I love you to death. There are more true crime videos in my Captured Killers playlist if you'd like to check them out. Either way, stay safe, my loves, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.